He performed just as I expected him to, with a kind of abandon, as well as I always thought of a kind of unexpected control. His solos were pretty wild, and I remember that Milt Gabler became a hero when he produced a series of records on Commodore, the first ones that were originals that were made by Commodore Music Shop. And he gave Pee Wee 2 choruses on Love Is Just Around the Corner. I think I played that record through to the other side. It was so wonderful to hear Pee Wee play 2 choruses. In fact, it was wonderful to hear anybody play 2 choruses. That was pretty rare if it wasn't Dippermouth Blues or something like that. And I got to know Pee Wee in an odd sort of way. The others, particularly Eddie Condon and Bud Freeman, were very friendly toward me, a young enthusiastic kid. And Pee Wee, I think, kind of looked at me fishy-eyed for a while, but he caught on to the fact that I really was into the music deeply, and he began to talk to me when we went across the street to Julius's, where the scotch was, I think, 40 cents or 50 cents instead of 75, which Nick Rongetti charged even the musicians. And those sessions in the back room were where I got to know Pee Wee, not because of any deep conversations, but because he opened up off the bandstand and away from the audience. He was not one to ever sit at somebody's table. That was Eddie Condon's job. Bud Freeman did that too. I cannot tell you what we talked about, because Pee Wee was not a big talker, but he was fascinating to listen to, because for one thing you had to listen very carefully. He spoke in short sentences, somewhat obliquely, and the most interesting thing about it was that he didn't talk about music. He simply talked about life in general. It's the same kind of thing that I remember in my earliest conversations at Louis Armstrong's home, where I went many, many times, and even the couple of sessions which he taped through his accidental procedure of turning on a tape recorder. I'm amazed. We didn't talk about anything in particular. It was just a general conversation among friends. This friendship continued. It wasn't a case of looking for perfection, but it all worked out very, very well. The great thing about Pee Wee, this has already been said, was that you never knew what he was going to do. And that was what I first realized was an extension of the use of the clarinet beyond the smooth, extremely organized and powerfully expressive style that Goodman played, because it was like Frank Teschmacher's surprises. People used to kind of giggle at Teschmacher and say, well, he doesn't have any technique and all, but my God, the man had fire. And he played unexpected phrases which nobody else seemed to come close to until I heard Pee Wee. Pee Wee grew on one to such an extent that I felt very disappointed when I couldn't use him on record dates with Condon, because he wasn't always there. And I think I mentioned a little while ago that the other great clarinetist with Eddie, of course, was Edmund Holt, who played with him relatively briefly. And as far as Pee Wee's personality is concerned, beyond the fact that he could carry on an ordinary conversation, which most people didn't expect, was that he was extremely self-effacing. He couldn't quite believe that people meant it when they applauded him. He was a genuinely shy person. I think self-effacing is a better word than shy. And I have to say that I don't think that there was ever a musician who did not realize as much as Pee Wee did how worshipped he was by his admirers. He couldn't believe that people really loved his playing and also liked him as a person. He was a warm guy. I would have to say a very ordinary person who didn't get into any heavy political talk and all, but he was a friend, and he remained a friend always. He was also a bit of a softball player, because Condon used to organize softball games in the little lot, which is, I think it may be a parking lot. It's on 6th Avenue at the end of 3rd Street, on the opposite side from the Blue Note. And it was a small place, but that was okay, because none of the Condon guys were really good ball players. The one I remember, I don't think anybody knocked one over the fence, and it was a small place.
Were they sober?
And the main thing was that there was always beer and a lot of laughs. And David Tuff was the most interesting player to watch, because when he swung a bat, the bat practically carried him away, and he would often pick himself up off the ground after he missed, because he swung hard. And he was about the scrawniest person imaginable. He was thinner than Pee Wee, which was quite saying something. On Pee Wee's work, other than the many recordings I made with him, there are so many wonderful surprises to be dug up if you start searching. One of the surprises was a record I found in a junk shop by the Louisiana Rhythm Makers on Brunswick. I had no idea who was on it, but it turned out to be Pee Wee. It's a Fred Nichols session. The two sides are called Last Cent, which is just like I guess it's a blues, or it's a 16 or 32 bar variation, and Basin Street Blues before there was a beginning to Basin Street Blues. It also is the other record that I really like of Red Nichols, the first one being Shimmisher Wobble, of course, with Teschmacher, Krupa, and Condon, and Joe Sullivan. The performances that he made, he played on so many forgotten, ignored records of people like Red Nichols are extraordinary. There was a mention of the Rhythm Makers series, which was a pickup six-piece band that changed personnel every now and then. He's on most of them. He plays fine tenor sax on one session. There's a certain quality of abandon which is even more present on those early records than on the later ones, possibly because Pee Wee began to feel, I suspect, that certain things were expected of him, and therefore he sometimes was performing a bit under wraps. He played with great abandon from time to time, but a lot of the time he also seemed to be in control to a degree that was not the way he played when he was a younger man. Nevertheless, I don't think there was any clarinetist alive who ever was as original as Pee Wee Russell. As a person, he was a very sweet, kindly man. He adored his wife, Mary Caroli, and she took good care of him, but he drove her crazy. There were times when I would be sitting with Mary, who often came alone, and I would sit with her at Nick's and places like that, and she would say, "Oh my God, I'm going to have trouble with him when I get home." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, I can tell. He's all worked up, and he's not going to get to sleep. He's going to be up all night, and I won't get any sleep either." Well, I never wondered what else might have happened, but I suspect that Pee Wee carried his energy home to a degree that most musicians weren't able to, and yet he expended so much of it on the bandstand. You can see it in the films.